Hey everybody, welcome to another BONHAMOLOGY studio album analysis and demo video. Today's video is going to focus on Physical Graffiti, which is the band's 6th studio release. And actually I'm going to focus specifically on the first album in the set because I figured it would be a little bit too long of a video if I tried to get everything into one video for both albums. So, Physical Graffiti was recorded mainly in early 1974, January and February mostly. And the sessions for the album actually began in later 73, around October or November possibly, into December. But there really wasn't much that was done at that time. It was basically Page and Bonham working through the very beginnings of Kashmir and possibly a couple other tunes. I don't really know specifically what they were working on. But Jones was in kind of a place of a bit of disillusionment with the band and with the touring life. He had expressed to Peter Grant that he was concerned about the rigors of their schedule, and he was actually considering quitting from what I've read. So Peter Grant, the manager, told him to take some time off just to clear his head, and he did do that in the winter of 73 into 74. He actually worked on another recording for a vocalist named Madeline Bell, and he basically produced and arranged her album and played bass on it. And the band reconvened at Headley Grange. Jones, I guess, felt like he had the break that he needed and wanted to get back to work with the band. So they began working on their next album. And the studio at Headley Grange, they didn't have access to the Rolling Stones truck. I don't know if it was that they didn't have access or it was maybe a little too expensive for Page's taste, but they ended up using a different mobile recording studio at Headley Grange that belonged to Ronnie Lane. It was Ronnie Lane's mobile studio. And they got to work on the album in January and started fleshing out all these tunes. They had about 8 tunes that they were working on, and they realized that it was going to be too much material for just one album. So they decided to turn it into a double LP with sort of a compilation of previously unreleased material from earlier albums. Stuff like Down by the Seaside, Houses of the Holy, which was recorded for that album, and the Rover as well. So they ended up putting together this double LP, which is, of course, an iconic album. Some people consider it their best. It certainly showcases Bonzo in a really prominent light because a lot of the songs are very drum-oriented, like In My Time of Dying, and of course Kashmir, which he famously came up with the groove and the basic hook of the song. The engineer for the dates was Ron Nevison, but it was recorded, like I said, in early 1974, but it wasn't released until February of 75, while the band were actually on tour in the U.S. again. Their tour began in January of 75. So I'd like to get into doing demos of each song and talk a little bit about what Bonzo was doing on these particular grooves, as I have been doing with the previous videos. So let's get right into it with Custard Pie, which is the very first track. Okay, so Custard Pie is a song that has always been one of my favorites, and for some reason they never played this song live, but I think it would have been a great live number. It has so much swagger. The beat that Bonzo plays just is full of attitude, and interestingly, the beat is kind of an inversion or a flipped version of the Whole Lotta Love beat. It has a little bit of a stagger in the placement of the snare, of the backbeat, just like Whole Lotta Love, but the first bar has the delayed backbeat rather than the second bar. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. First, I'm going to play the Whole Lotta Love beat, and then I'll play the Custard Pie beat. So here's Whole Lotta Love. Okay, so now here's Custard Pie. Do you hear the similarity? So in the Custard Pie beat, instead of delaying the snare drum hit after the first bar, he starts with that kind of displacement because it fits the riff of the song. The riff of the song is da 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 da. And as usual, as I talk about a lot in these analysis videos, one of the hallmarks or trademarks of Bonzo's style is that he always played to the riff or played to the figure of the guitar and the bass part. So with that figure, you've got da 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 da. He's basically playing right along with the bass and the guitar figure. And that's pretty simple. That's just basically he's playing a quick little, kind of like a rough, but it's a single stroke, not a double stroke, like this. Okay, so now I'm just going to play through the song a little bit. Okay, and that's basically the entire groove for the whole song. Of course, as the song is going out, Bonzo plays probably one of my all-time favorite drum fills. And it's nothing fancy. It's just two gigantic slams down on the toms and floor tom. But it's one of the most effective, quintessential Bonham fills ever, and it just hits you right in the gut every time. That's this part as it's going out, the drop down part. So I don't know if I'm doing that justice, but I'm sure he lifted his hands up a lot higher than I just did when he slammed those two down. But that's Custard Pie. So moving right along, we have the Rover. Okay, so next up is the Rover. And the Rover was actually recorded in April of 1972 in the sessions for Houses of the Holy at Stargroves. And Oh, I should have mentioned that Custard Pie was recorded, in fact, for the Physical Graffiti sessions in January of 1974 at Headley Grange. But the Rover actually started out as an acoustic number. They were jamming at Bronyar Cottage in Wales when they were recording the third album, and it sort of evolved into a little tune there, but they didn't work it into a full-scale song until the sessions for Houses of the Holy. So the song begins with, of course, with Bonzo's famous introduction, and I'm just going to go ahead and play that and start playing the song. This song has a fairly straightforward drum part or drum beat. It's not like it's a real unique drum part that's related to the main riff, although toward the end of the song, he does these little sort of stagger step kind of things with the bass drum in the groove going out, and I'll demonstrate that. But here's the beginning. Okay, so that's the main part of the song. And then for the choruses, I guess, he goes up onto the ride cymbal. Well, it's for the next section. And that goes something like this. And then back into the guitar solo. So again, the beat follows the rhythm of the guitar and bass part, but it's a pretty straightforward beat. And then, oh yeah, as the song goes out, you have this section where he starts doing this little bass drum kind of stutter step thing. And of course, as always, when playing Bonzo's parts on these songs, try to get as much of that funk and ghosting in there as possible. A lot of this kind of thing. And that's the Rover. Okay, so In My Time of Dying is arguably one of Bonzo's greatest drum performances. The song is obviously very, very much fueled by his creative energy. Everything that he plays on the song is very distinctively the trademark Bonham style and approach. And I'm not sure how much input he had on the composition or the arrangement of the song. It's a quintessentially original Zeppelin arrangement of a song. It's basically an old traditional song. Blind Willie Johnson, the blues artist, did a version of it in the 20s, or other versions from a long time ago. Jesus, Make Up My Dying Bed. And then Bob Dylan recorded it in the early 60s as an acoustic number. I remember when I first heard that, I was like, oh, wow, Bob Dylan's the first one to record In My Time of Dying. And then I learned later that it was an old traditional black gospel song. And Zeppelin's treatment of it, of course, is entirely original, even though it borrows lyrically from the old traditional song. So where did they come up with this stuff? I don't know, but this is really an inspired piece of drumming and music from Zeppelin. It's, I believe, their longest studio track ever recorded. It's just an epic performance. Of course, it begins with these big floor tom hits, which are kind of like what he did at the end of Custard Pie, playing those figures in the stop time and then coming in with that famous groove. So let's take a look at those parts. So you've got to start with this stop time thing. So for those opening verses, that's basically what he's doing. He played that very differently live. When they did this song live, he almost never played up on the ride cymbal and played that snare drum part on all four beats. This thing. When they played this live, he almost always went. Now, the next section is a classic example, again, of Bonzo playing a beat, coming up with a beat that fits hand in glove into the guitar and bass riff. So this is the case in point right here. Da 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 ba da ba da ba da ba da ba da 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 da. And then right there, he switches to 16th notes on the hi-hat and plays the backbeats with his right hand, like this. So that beat is, it's a pretty simple beat, but it's a little tricky to play because you've got those double drops on the bass drum. He's going. It would be easier to play if it were just. But that's not what Bonzo did. He's got his foot working extra hard as usual. Now, one interesting little tiny detail, when he plays that fill leading into the next section, each time, there's usually a little hi-hat note before the crash. He goes, and it coincides with the bass drum pickup to the downbeat, like that. Next, we have now when he does those, that was a little sloppy, but when he does those, he's kind of doing the Bonham engine right there. He's kind of doing the, it's not real extra heavy though on the bass drum, but he's definitely doing more than just going. He's going. So when it ends with a bass drum stroke in addition to the snare, and that gives it extra weight. It gives it a lot of heft. It gives it a lot of power. And the hi-hats are on the downbeats. And then the big fills at the end. Gonna make it my dying, dying. Cough. Okay, so Houses of the Holy. This song was originally recorded in 1972 at Olympic Studios in London, and it was engineered by George Kiantz, and I believe it was finished off in New York by Eddie Kramer. There might have been some overdubs recorded, and the final mix was done by Kramer, I believe. But at any rate, this tune is also pretty straightforward, kind of like the Rover in that respect. Pretty standard rock and roll drumming on it, but again, Bonzo's got his personalized way of playing a standard drum beat, and mostly it's the bass drum accents that are catching a lot of the figures. And then there's also these little quirky, like stutter step things on the hi-hat this time. So I'm just going to go ahead and play the beat and do the demonstration of it here. So that's basically the beat to the entire song. Some of those funny little figures where the time shifts for a second, he just plays kind of, well, I'll just demonstrate them. It's like kind of a double stroke in the bass drum and splashing on the hi-hat, like this kind of thing. That's basically what that is. So that's basically the tune. That's the style of drumming on the tune. And it also has some overdubbed cowbell parts and some tambourine. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so next up is Trampled Underfoot. And this song is clearly a nod to Stevie Wonder and Superstition, in my opinion, and their love of that music, of Tamla, funk, soul music, Motown. The song has a clavinet that Jones plays, which is very reminiscent of Superstition. And Bonzo just keeps this relentless, heavy, but swinging funk beat throughout the entire song, and it just keeps building and building and building to the finish. The beat is fairly straightforward. However, a lot of the little accents he plays are really very cool, very subtle, some of them. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and we'll touch on some of those little embellishments that he plays leading up to the guitar solo, or the clavinet solo and then the guitar solo. So here it is. Okay, now the second time through the next verse, he plays these kind of things. Which are very fast triplets. So at that point, sorry, getting a little ahead of myself. So at that point, we come to the next break, which leads out of the guitar solo. So that's... That's a killer break. I love that break. And then, of course, going out, you've got the big fills going out into the finale. And then the parts that he plays with the bass drum and hi-hat barks or splashes like this. Okay, and that takes us to the last song on the first album, on side 2, which is, of course, Kashmir. Now, Kashmir is a grand epic Zeppelin song, probably the band's favorite song. And Bonzo, I think, had a lot of pride in this song because he came up with the basic roots of the song. The riff supposedly was his idea. And, of course, the beat, even though it's a fairly simple beat, it's just distinctive enough in that Bonzo way that it's iconic because of that slightly dropped second bass drum note after the downbeat. Also, the way the structure of the song is built, it's very unusual in that it's kind of like bars of 3/4 or 6/4 with a 4/4 style beat as an undercurrent, and which lines up with the 4/4 parts, which are dun 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 da da da. That's a 2-bar phrase in 4/4, but all the while, the sort of repetitive, vamp of the da 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 dun da 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 keeps going, and that's in 6 or in 3. You could look at it as 2 bars of 3 or 1 bar of 6. So what you have basically is a superimposition of time of the 4 over the 6. So it's probably best to check my drum cover of this song just to as far as a demo goes, because it helps to actually hear the music to put the drum beat in context. But I'm just going to go ahead and play the beat a little bit for a while and just kind of visualize the song in my head. Okay, so the first transition is when it goes into the next section. Bonham plays the figure that the guitars play as a fill on the snare drum into the next section, and I'll do that. Into the next session. So at that point, he gets up on the ride cymbal. and so on, until we get out of the main verses and back into the last section. Now I'm just going to play a few more examples of some of the fills that he plays, or the styles of fills that he plays on the song, and I'll demonstrate that right now. So that concludes this video, and I'm looking forward to getting into the next LP, number 2 for Physical Graffiti. Hopefully I'll be able to get that done sometime in the next month. It's been a little bit of a busy month for me since early November into December. I've been just busier with work, and I was actually traveling. I was in Portugal for about 12 days at a jazz festival, doing some workshops, working with students there, and also performing at the festival in Guimarães, Portugal, which was fantastic. It was a great trip. But I haven't had as much time to devote to making videos. So after the new year, I should have a little bit more of a free schedule to get back into it. And we've also got some new exciting news at People's Front of Zeppelin. We're working on finishing up our version of Dazed and Confused, which is going to be a showpiece for Ivan, our guitar player. It's going to be nearly 30 minutes long. It's going to be the whole kit and caboodle. So I think you all will really enjoy that once it comes out. So that's kind of in the final stages of assembly. And also we have a new website. So if you go to www.peoplesfrontofzeppelin.com, you can check it out, have a look around. It's a really nicely done website that Pete, our bass player, put together. And there's a subscription option if you're interested, kind of like what we were doing on Patreon, where you could subscribe either monthly or annually. I think it's $10 a month or $100 for the year. And for that cost, you get access to our instrument cam videos. You also get access to the play-alongs and downloadable audio tracks, as well as some demo and tutorial stuff there that all of us will be doing. and there's some content on there that will not be on BONHAMOLOGY. So take a look at the website. I think, you know, hardcore Zeppelin fans are going to really dig it. So again, that's peoplesfrontofzeppelin.com. And yeah, that's all for now. I hope you all enjoyed this analysis and demo video, and I'll see you real soon. Hope you all have a very happy holiday season. Be safe and be healthy. Take care.